My name's Melissa Veldman, and I'm here to give you a presentation on how to create a story time for toddlers. We're going to look at the key elements of a successful story time, how you prepare yourself for a successful story time, how to prepare patrons for story time, and what you need to be aware of during story time. So the main goal of a successful story time is to capture and hold children's attention. A good way to do this is to make sure that the parents and caregivers are encouraged to participate as well, because then they'll model the engagement to their children and active listening to their children. A good way to help facilitate caregiver participation is through giving the words to whatever songs or poems that you're going to do later on through printed on a bookmark, or you can put them up, display them on the screen throughout the story time. You want to make sure that you keep your audience in mind, making sure you're having age-appropriate material where it's not too complicated or too simple of level for those children, and curate based off of children's interests, which is a lot of times they like books and stories with humor in them, with animals, with rhythm and repetition. And the repetition is actually quite important because it helps with child participation. Because if you think, for example, if you are saying 5 Little Monkeys, reading that story to the kids, then since there's a lot of repetition, you can get to when you get to the doctor part, say, Mama called the doctor and the doctor said, what did the doctor say? And then all the kids can say along with you, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. So then they can be ready and engaged, and they'll be waiting for their turn to speak and when they're allowed to speak. So yeah, making sure that you are keeping in mind what will engage and interest children, and also keeping in mind their attention spans are usually a lot shorter. So max, you want to have about half an hour, 45 minutes tops for your story time. And then librarian Lindsay Krabenhoft has a recipe for what she says is her recipe to success for a successful story time. And that is these 4 elements here. Flexibility, you want to make sure that you are not too rigid in your idea of how your story time is going to go. You want to make sure that you have some backup or different ideas of things that you can go, different activities and stories that you can do if your original plan is not really resonating with the children. Then you can change it up, be flexible, and try and adjust so then to engage the children and make sure that they are having a good time as well. Repetition, we kind of talked about that. That really helps with children understanding what's going on and really helps with child participation. Movement's really important, especially it's hard for anyone really to sit still for half an hour straight, so especially children. So if you incorporate movement specifically into your activities, then that really helps with directing the restless energy towards participation. So you can do things like active games, or if you're doing songs, you can incorporate instruments like shakers or movement scarves or bells. So then the children's movement is a part of the story time. And then caregiver participation, we kind of talked about that already. If the caregivers are engaged and they're focusing on you and the activities, then that'll help show their children to be also engaged in the activities. So like I said, flexibility is quite important. So when planning your story time, then you want to have in mind that it's a flexible structure. You got to figure out one that works for you and the library space that you're in and your patrons. So there's lots of different ideas, orders of story, then activity, story activity, or vice versa, and or just all activities are all saved for the end. So you just got to kind of play around and find out what works best for you. And there's lots of resources on the internet for finding information about that. When you're choosing your stories, you want to keep in mind the good aspects of a read aloud book are lots of dialogue, simple but straightforward plot, interesting characters, lots of action, a clear climax, and a satisfying conclusion. Like the good guy triumphs over evil. Kids like stories where things are fair, justice prevails, that kind of idea. And large and clear illustrations, so then they'll be interesting visually as well for the children to engage in. When you're choosing stories, sometimes there's various versions of a story, and it's a good idea to read the multiple versions and find out which one works best for your purposes. For example, I recently did a story time where my theme was folktales, and there were a couple different versions of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and I found one that had really bright, more African style illustrations, and they were very vibrant, bright, engaging illustrations, and I really thought that that one would pair well with the other books that I had already chosen. So yeah, there's just various factors, whether there's maybe some of the versions are written more understandably for your age group that you're trying to cater to, or whether the illustrations are more what you're looking for. There's various factors. So if you have the option of there's different books, it's a good idea to take a look at all those different books. And even though it's called Storytime, it's not only about reading stories. There's the connecting activities, connected materials is also very important. Those are not just filler, they're a good link together. And there's lots of good resources for that on Jayberry. She has lots of videos and that show different like songs or rhymes along with actions that you can do. There's lots of different games and lots of different connective activities. You can ask me more about like different options later. There's also lots of resources for that online. Theme is really important. It also is another one of those things where it ties everything all together, and that's what you're going to base choosing your stories and your connective activities off of. Your theme can really be anything. You can take inspiration from upcoming holidays or just come up with something in your imagination. Again, you want to keep in mind the age you're catering to, so don't make it too complicated, just make it simple. And then you want to do, again, repetition is super important. So with your opening and closing ritual, you're going to want to make that very similar. To open, to show the kids that, okay, story time started. You can have something like playing some music or a bell, and then, excuse me, then you can repeat that at the end to signal that story time's over. And if you have a lot of repeating patrons, then they can start to learn that routine over the weeks as well. Then it'll signal to them, get into the groove of story time, and then, all right, story time's all done. And then what's also super important is practice. You want to make sure that you are practicing reading your stories ahead of time so that it can be smooth and you can be enthusiastic and focusing on engaging the children with the story rather than just focusing on trying not to stumble over your words. And then also, going over songs that you're going to sing or the different activities, the different instructions. It's also very important to do. And then, because then you'll be confident and able to be enthusiastic, and that'll also help with children's engagement rather than if you're unsure, then the children will lose interest if you're not immediately like engaging them, right? All right, prepare patrons for story time. So you're going to want to post notices around, whether it be posters or you put it on your library's website. You have pamphlets that you hand out to make sure people are aware that they can utilize this service. And then I suggest making a registration list so that people pre-register. So then you're able to limit to the ideal range of like 12 to 15 kids, roughly. Also depending on what size of space you have. So then Also with pre-registration, then you can see whether there's like a high demand for it, and you can maybe introduce more sessions, or if you're not really getting any registration, you can know that ahead of time, kind of what size of group to expect, and maybe whether you need to work more on the posting of notices, getting the word out there more that this is an available service to the community. All right, so during your story time, what you want to be aware of is making sure the book is visible to all the kids. This is, again, will help engage them visually, and that's why we're picking out books that will be visually engaging as well. You want to make sure you maintain a lot of eye contact. This is also where the practicing comes in. If you've read over the book quite a few times, then you'll be a lot more familiar with it, and then you only need to glance at the pages in order to read the story, and then you can be maintaining eye contact with the children. This shows them that you're paying attention to them and signals to them that they also should be paying attention to you right now. You're not just focusing on the book, you're actually focusing on the children. Character voices, this is not necessary, but it is a additionally positive thing to do. It is, again, helps with the interest of the children, and it also helps them to distinguish between characters. Who's talking, you can tell by which voice is doing the speaking. Talking speed and volume is also important. Not too fast, not too slow. You want to do just right, like Goldilocks. And also volume. You don't want to be yelling at the kids, but you also want to make sure that your voice is carrying throughout the whole room so that everyone can hear. And again, you want to be encouraging parent participation, encourage caregiver participation. This will really liven up the room. It'll make it more enjoyable for everyone. You won't feel like you're just up there alone. And it'll really help the children also to see that, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? What is mom? What is dad? What is my caregiver doing right now? And then, then they can learn about active listening as well. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and let me know if you have any questions.